So from Hromadske Radio, Maksym, you are welcome. You are given the floor. Please introduce your project about refugees in Ukraine so that we can understand the role of Maksym here. Nataliya is a journalist, Oksana is a researcher into censorship. So she represents NGO research in NGO, and Maksym demonstrates how people are influenced by those articles published in mass media. My name is Lesya Gandzha. I am a editor-in-chief of Acess to the Truth project. I welcome every citizen to join us to monitor our authorities through information requests submitting. So in the website, our website in Economics of Life, you will see Access. You can get to templates where you can send requests to executive authorities of our country. This instrument is worth our attention, and it concerns public in general. When people can't find some information in mass media, they try to find information themselves, sending such requests. Information reason for our today's conference is the launch of Stop Censorship exhibition. So here we can see the members in the contest, and we are not going to speak today about the winners, but the exhibition. We will tell you about the exhibition. This banners and various mottos about censorship and corruption, they participate in this contest, and the opening of this exhibition is the reason for our today's briefing. What is more actual today, censorship or self-censorship? Oksana, please answer this question. Oksana Romaniuk, Executive Director of the Institute of Mass Information. In our country, we do not have any large-scale censorship. Our research demonstrates that during 8 months of this year, only 7 cases of censorship were registered all over Ukraine, where we can say that it was censorship or restriction on information. Talking about self-censorship, I would say more about professionalism of journalists and keeping to journalistic standards. Censorship and any manipulations with information, they concern how facts from opinions are divided. If they are mixed together in the articles, then we can already say that the news is a kind of manipulation. The standard of our journalists, really keep to these standards. They divide facts from opinions. 87% of news are compliant with the standard. Talking about self-censorship as a phenomenon, during the last 2 years we faced the new challenge, the aggression against Ukraine. Very many emotions arose, and this, of course, influenced the discourse. But the matter where is the border between self-censorship and ethics? If you do not keep to the border, if you go beyond the border, if you are just ethical journalist, this you then comply with self-censorship requirements. We addressed international arbitrators, and they responded to our questions. And in professional journalist community, certain kind of radicalization of moods took place. People divided into several camps. Those who said to themselves that revealing corruption in some armed forces, you can't do that during the war times. This is one camp. The other camp is where journalists support such position that every corruption act should be revealed and detected and publicized even during the time of war in the defense sector. So some very radical supporters of this or that camp, they are not vast majority, but this is a kind of history, politicization. It is an artificial phenomenon dividing the professional community of journalists. Our values differ, but to respond to the question where is the border between ethics and self-censorship, not on the Facebook pages, but in some closed circle where we can discuss, we can debate these issues. I would like to ask Nataliya, as a journalist, what is your position in this discussion? Are you for self-restrictions, and where are the borders of self-restrictions when we talk that journalists are watchdogs? I work in Hromadske radio broadcasting, and no businessmen have any connection with us, and no governmental bodies can influence us, but at the same time our responsibility is huge. We can't say that we experienced any pressure because we are very independent. This responsibility, we feel it very strongly. So such debates, we are participants of these discussions all the time, and I am in the position between the trap of patriotism to the position shifting to the position that we should remain journalists whatever the circumstances. So I support very much Oksana's idea, the proposal for these professional debates to take place, to be continued, and I hope that the war will never repeat again, and we will just research this story as our past. Now, we should not be ashamed of the mistakes when someone got into the trap of patriotism. We should reveal and recognize such mistakes. If we can't say that someone is 100% right and someone is 100% wrong. The situation is really complicated. It's instead of censorship, you shifted to the trap of patriotism in this discussion. We can see now Nastya Stanko has joined us already. I think it would be very interesting to hear her position, but as concerns my own opinion as a journalist, have been working as a journalist not so much. I worked for Project Without Borders for Refugees against xenophobia, and we assist IDPs, and I also involved in educational project for mass media persons. From self-censorship, we shifted to the trap of patriotism, and this is not accidentally, because for the sake of motherland, for the sake of national interests, for the sake of national security, the state interests, but not specific individuals, this is a very good trap, because the situation is complex and complicated. On the one side, in the conditions of the wartime, no restrictions may take place in mass media. This is not true. Restrictions should be in place in the wartime. It concerns about dislocations and numbers of our troops. We can't reveal such information, but we should not provide sales restrictions for the sake of creating propaganda monster, small Ukrainian propaganda monster to counteract large Russian propaganda monster. Let's act, of course, proportional, but we can't repeat the actions of our enemy. This position is unsafe. It is not promising, because we can't create any propaganda machine technically which will be capable of counteracting Russian propaganda machinery. They have adjusted and built their propaganda machine for dozens of years, and we do not have such oil industry to fill the propaganda budget with its funds. So technically we do not have capacity built, and on the other hand, I am sure this position will result in destruction of journalism, because propaganda and journalism, they are different sectors, different occupations. Journalists can't become propaganda specialists for just some period. If you have turned into a propaganda specialist, you can't go back to journalism later. There is no third option. We have one very important advantage over our enemy. It is asymmetric. We can allow ourselves to have different opinions in our society. Even when the formats and forms of such discussions sometimes look ugly. We do not have any holy cows which are not allowed to be talked about. We can breathe freely. If we destroy this freedom, this variety of opinions in the society, then we will lose everything. Now Nastya Stanko have joined us. Nastya has been in the epicenter of scandal in the Ministry of Defense, which was about coverage of the military situation, and it ended in the very fruitful discussion discussion between journalists and the Ministry of Defense, where the rules and norms of journalists activities they were set there. And what about the Ministry of Defense or journalists who took the lead?
So you specified the question as good. Of course, it is the question whether this discussion is fruitful. It is ongoing between the Ministry of Defense and the Hromadske, and if we are speaking about overall situation that we discuss, and this separate case, we have everything started with a lie that was distributed by ETO Center. The story from Avdiivka, 2 servicemen died there. We saw this, we witnessed this, and there were problems to make this video published, and we did made public, and we didn't know what they don't like, and we don't have answers. But we, the ATO Center disseminated this information, but they didn't make any excuses. But they said that they will bring us to the front line to see the situation by our own eyes. So, and was it the censorship? The commander of the battalion only asked to wait for 24 hours before informing the family about the dead, and then the situation changed, but there was one separate wish in the ministry that everything should be verified what is shot at the front line, so you cannot provide the video without the permission of the Ministry of Defense. Is this censorship? To what extent it is censorship? It was not introduced. This is the question for discussion. We'll even see if the press officer see that the journalist shot something, some weaponry, for example, that shouldn't be seen on the screen. Maybe some comments of the military who criticize the military or the commanders. So there are some. So maybe that will be the censorship. But in the conditions of military conflict, there is also always censorship when we are speaking about the safety of servicemen. We do not want to undermine the safety. Speaking about our case, we were discredited by bots, and this lie was disseminated through the media. This was most popular post on Facebook of ATO Press Center, and there was no information about Russian tanks or dead soldiers. Was never so popular as our information. It was popular, and it got 1,300 likes, and we were in the situation when ATO Center rejected it, but this video went through the internet because we cannot say whether that is the post of the blogger that is popular, or you can face the situation that is new in the information sphere. When you rejected one fake, there are thousands of others appear at the same moment, and you just can drown in this mud. And the journalist should continue their work and adhere to professional standards. Otherwise, he cannot perform his duties. We were threatened Some comments appeared that we corrected fire at our servicemen who were near us. So the situation was threatening for me and for cameramen. So these were reputational losses. So we have to deal with it now. And there is a wish to discredit journalists, especially investigative journalists, and I see the journalists that work at the front line, they try to show everything like it really is. So for journalists, there is a threat, and you start to think, and some people think that because of danger, they should change their profession. And there is a report of UNO. There is a remark about the journalists who work in the ATO area. They are subjected to attacks, and these are not just fake things. This is real life. So if this online attack can be considered censorship, if it influences the number of investigation, so this is not censorship, but this is obstacle to the work of the journalists, because censorship is when some information is not allowed to be made public. And I have an impression that it didn't influence the activity of our colleagues. They continue their news, their investigations, and we went through the times, and it's very difficult to threaten the journalists through online attacks, through bots. And of course it influences emotional, psychological state of the journalists. I disagree with Oksana, maybe partly. Of course, we in our office, we think how to write and how to present information correctly in order not to be accused of being a hand of the Kremlin or something. And we are all people, and we pay attention to things, and there are problems. For example, we spoke with Saakashvili and wanted to create an interview, and he said that they told me in the social media that you are pro-Russian, and I don't know whether it's worth it. So one guy of opposition bloc who helped, and there is investigation. He helped Mykola Azarov to flee, so they believe they are not pro-Russian, because Saakashvili is can be there on this channel. But with Saakashvili, the situation can be different, maybe connected with the presence of some people in Odessa Oblast that try to influence the content. As to bots, I believe that we should not pay attention to it because the world develops and there will be more and more these bots, and the world exists outside Facebook. And we should look not only at Facebook audience. There are many colleagues in Ukraine and abroad, and they suffer from bots and the internet trolling. And there were colleagues who suffered after publication of Mirotvorets Peacekeeper site. This is new reality, and we should overcome and to write what we should write. So previously I met with some people in the winter. This year I was in Harvard, and there they have special courses for people who are public figures, and they should be ready to face situations that there will be hatred, and the attitude of people can be different, and it is also concerning the journalists. So these are the challenges of the profession. So you should deal with it. And summing up what we said about self-censorship, so first, journalists don't want to harm national security and its interests, and also there is pressure on social media that somehow influence the opinion of the journalist and force him or her to counter each word in order to prevent hate speech. So if you could you tell us about self-limitation, self-censorship? What factors can you name? We can think about it. So maybe I will sidestep from the topic, but I would like to say about Hromadske radio and Hromadske television. I believe that should be an understanding in society that in the modern world, society should support social media. They should really support them because the journalists work in autonomous mode. They are independent from power. And Oksana tells me that they are independent from owner. And this is really important, taking into account this new threats from bots and attacks of bots. And there should be understanding in society that there are some media that do not fall in the traps of some ideas, that they're independent. And in such media, that are independent from business, from rating, from other assessment, they should be supported in order that society knew what is going on, because there are many risks. And in this media, they have less risks of falling under the influence of some interested parties, because private media, they are under great influence. So in what way does the owner influence censorship of the information flow? Now this is the main challenge in the content of the Ukrainian media. This is the influence of oligarchs, of owners, or indirect influence of paid journalism. When media exists only due to the elections, so they place hidden political advertisement, and they cannot criticize this political party or to write truthful information about this party. So this is a self-censorship. And also the owner of that has political interests, he finances the media, subsidizes, and the journalists, they won't write about his airport or his airline monopolist. If we are speaking about Kolomoisky and 1+1, you cannot see such an investigation. Also in Inter, you can find about information about the Association of Employers. So this is the result of non-transparency of our media market. And the media, they are in some schemes of this ownership in Cyprus and offshores. So in the media, like in the terrorism, who took responsibility, he is the owner. So who said he is the owner, he is the owner. So the quality of the content. Now we are speaking about quality media that adhere to journalist standards. But the majority of Ukrainian media, unfortunately, differ. So there are two key problems in the content of the media. First, economic situation and the influence of owners, paid journalism, and all this vicious circle it forms. And second, this is laziness and unprofessionalism. Only 48% of news adhere to the balance, and They show only those who are active, who presented press releases. They won't search for other opinions. They won't investigate. And there are many things that they just take press releases of the local government and they do not carry out journalistic duties. And we say that this is microphones on their legs or parrots that just take someone from one side and put it into the other. So the journalists should try to find balance, and half of the media do not see the complexity of the situation, and this is one of the most critical problems, parallel to the pressure of the owners and also absence of some lack of some transparency. Thank you, Maksym. I would like to add to Oksana's speech. I would like to remind about one more factor before Maidan, before war and occupation, that are really important issues. That is not about censorship. It is about the factor that distorts the media highlighting of some events, especially in commercial media. So they are oriented on rating and the interest of the audience. And here we see, until now, it results in some populist things when they, through the channel or in the paper, they put shocking headlines, or they simplify really complex topics in order to draw attention. So this is connected with the market, and this is not the censorship in itself. Following what Oksana said, what censorship is, this is some sort of dictatorship, as the media people say, and it's not about, and sometimes they say, look how many people watch you, and they say to Hromadske TV, you are too clever for people. So one thing, when they produce the news, shock sex scandal, and some headlines, shocking headlines appear, and sometimes it can bring tragic consequences. We remember highlighting of Yagotin conflict about the place of IDPs. There were no IDPs then, and the media created the situation when the Independent Media Council for the first time took the decision that condemned the highlighting by the media of the situation. We remember also the crisis in Europe when they reprinted some scandal news that are xenophobic, that influenced on how IDPs are viewed now by Ukrainians. And we remember what happened with the Lesya event, showing that was some actions were against the gypsies, and if they write Roma, then the material will be normal. But these materials, they're xenophobic from the very start, and then it was more up to professional standards, but these are factors that are really important, and then they remain, because socially important issues are usually distorted. Thank you, Maksym.
Yes, Maksym, what you had, this is about provinciality of our media market as compared to the European market. In Europe today, the understanding have been increasing that all this vivid marking, this is just the requirement of time which originates from some individualism or competition with internet sources. News should be made not like tides shock and 3 exclamation marks. The tides should be more vivid, but the news, the piece of news should be of high quality. But how Ukrainian journalists work, we are surfing on the we are surf on the surface. Some news will be about some road accidents, 50% of paid journalism, and the rest some pocket articles. So this challenge, they may concern us as being NGOs. We should publish not large press releases, but some numbers. Some news which would motivate people to do something. We live in such world now. I would like to add very short remark. If we have live air and then the interviews are listened, they are watched in the internet, for example, about Sergei Leshenko and his property, his estate. We put these materials and less popular materials about some social problems, about xenophobic things. If this is not about scandals, that they are less popular. We also cover Maidan topic, which is not any longer interested to everyone. So all those bloggers, they are very popular because bloggers, they are not responsible for their words, and people disseminate their materials, and analytical journalism is not popular, but I'm sure that the society will get back to the analytical journalism, that people will become interested again in various graphs and whether the numbers can prove that Leshenko could have saved this amount of money which he paid for his real estate. So I think that everything will be okay. Well, as compared to the first part of our debate, when we told that censorship is the pressure of authorities and the will of authorities to see materials before their publication, and then we talked about limitations of self-censorship and also owner censorship, and also pressure from the part of audience. So summarizing all the factors of pressure which influence largely on the information flow in Ukraine, whether we have forgotten something, maybe we have not mentioned something, I would like to add about patriotism. It pressures us even more, because most journalists, they think that they are patriots. When you are named not patriotic, you think over, maybe you say something in the wrong manner. So we tell the truth even about secret jails of security service of Ukraine. We believe that this is patriotic, and some other forces, they think that this is not patriotic. So everyone has his or her own truth. Let's not speculate. Speculations, they are very useful for the authorities in the first turn. About the Ministry of Defense, they say do not make materials, do not cover his state issues. What do you think, whether all factors have been mentioned? Yes, we have mentioned the main benchmarks, the main since many people now, we can see that the debates become more and more ideological, and this is one of the threats which we seem to discuss in 1 year time. Military or paramilitary challenges, radicalization of thoughts, bring in many countries to white and black pictures in the mentality of people. This looks strange for me that this happens now, but not at the beginning of 2015. There are some people who wants to win by whatever the price would be paid, and there is also another camp when in this camp the ideology is to fight for the country which is independent, which has freedom and liberty. If we turn into a dragon while fighting a dragon, what for do we need this fight? So this is the second camp. I would not like to sound pathetic, but I now would like to remember one verse that I am a patriot and I am a dog and you are another kind of patriot. So barking every day, this is about watchdogs, about us, about activists who do not allow the civil society to go to sleep and to keep silence about the problems in the society. Well, summarizing, Natalka, can you tell us what challenges we will discuss in 1 year time? In the epoch of chaos, no forecast is possible. It would be good if we have already resolved the challenges which we face today, the economic situation, and mass media would have improved to the international standards, and this is rather surprising why the situation is like that, taking into consideration Facebook and Twitter. You often represent Ukrainian journalism in international conferences and communities. What are the consequences in information discourse? I think that journalists can read more. This is very simple wish. I would like to add also that journalists should go on sites and report these discourses. Let's visa-free regime be implemented. There is a certain trend today to politicize journalists' images. The journalists convert into a kind of monsters to make people fear of journalists. We can build more professional discussion in the professional journalist community. We can solidarize and we can abandon hatred between different camps. This would make us stronger. As about the focus for 2017, it would depend on the political situation in the country. If everything is calm, we will be working on some journalistic standards. If we have intensive military actions, there will be other topics. If we have elections, then it would be politicization. So everything would be based on the current situation in 2017. So we have mentioned the factors of censorship and self-censorship, and we also outlined the topic for future competition. This was the most actual challenge which the country faced. It was combating corruption. And Nastya Kurina will tell us where we can see the works displayed at the exhibition. Thank you very much to all the speakers. I am giving the floor to Oksana Kurina. I invite everyone to go to the launch hall where of the Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and there we will declare the winners of our contest, and then in the America House we will declare the winners of the contest against corruption. This is we should fight for freedom of speech every day, not only during anniversary days. Thank you very much.